Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah jiwa SME, Unified Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.
Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Anda sedang menyaksikan Niaga AWANI bersama saya Nina Rozman dan kita akan mulakan dengan perkembangan ini terlebih dahulu dengan Malaysia melihat ASEAN sebagai rantau berpotensi besar yang belum dimanfaatkan sepenuhnya dan bersedia untuk menjadi pemacu pertumbuhan dan daya tahan yang dinamik dalam keadaan ketidaktentuan global menurut Kementerian Pelaburan Perdagangan dan Industri MITI. Timbalan Ketua Setiausaha Perdagangan MITI Masrur Ahmad Mustafa berkata, ASEAN bukan sahaja sebagai pasaran besar, malah merupakan sumber inovasi, kreativiti dan tenaga dengan jumlah penduduk menghampiri 700 juta orang dan hampir 1/3 daripadanya adalah golongan belia. Katanya kelebihan demografi yang dimiliki ASEAN beserta kelas pengguna yang berkembang pesat, peningkatan kesalin hubungan dan penerimaan digital yang semakin pantas memberikan ASEAN kelebihan yang tersendiri. Jelas beliau jika dipupuk berdasarkan prinsip kemapanan dan keterangkuman, kekuatan ini bukan sahaja akan memperteguh pertumbuhan rantau ini, malah akan meletakkan ASEAN untuk berperanan membentuk masa depan ekonomi global. Masura berkata melalui kepengurusan ASEAN, Malaysia sedang berusaha untuk memperdalam integrasi serantau, mengukuhkan daya tahan rantai yang bekalan, merangsang pelaburan yang mampan dan bertanggungjawab serta memajukan inovasi digital. Lebih penting lagi katanya, Malaysia sebagai pengerusi komited untuk mewujudkan peluang kepada perniagaan semua peringkat, terutamanya perusahaan mikro, kecil dan sederhana supaya mempunyai pelibatan bermakna dalam perjalanan pertumbuhan ASEAN. Sementara itu, MITI dalam kenyataan berasingan berkata perbincangan utama dalam SEOM 356 menumpukan kepada keberhasilan utama ekonomi PED Malaysia di bawah kepengurusan ASEAN 2025 dan perkembangan terkini mengenai keutamaan tahunan 2025 di bawah bidang kuasa Menteri-Menteri Ekonomi ASEAN EEM. Selain itu, turut dibincangkan adalah pelaksanaan perjanjian ASEAN, kemajuan perjanjian rangka kerja ekonomi digital dan agenda kemapanan ASEAN termasuk keneutralan karbon, ekonomi kitaran dan grid tenaga ASEAN. MITI berperanan sebagai tuan rumah kepada SEOM 356 dan mesyuarat berkaitan bermula 18 hingga 23 Ogos di Kuala Lumpur. Kementerian berkata perbincangan dengan rakan dialog ASEAN memberikan tumpuan untuk meninjau semula kemajuan dan isu utama berkaitan pelaksanaan perjanjian perdagangan bebas FTA sedia ada serta status pelan kerja dan inisiatif kerjasama ekonomi yang sedang dilaksanakan. YTL Green Data Centre di Kulai Johor kini meletakkan Malaysia di peta global sebagai hub kecerdasan buatan AI dan pusat kecemerlangan AI di rantau ASEAN. Menteri Pelaburan, Perdagangan dan Industri Tengku Zafrul Abdul Aziz berkata, pusat data itu merupakan hasil kerjasama strategik antara YTL Power International Berhad dan NVIDIA bagi membangunkan infrastruktur AI berasaskan tenaga hijau. Ujar beliau, projek mega bernilai 10 bilion ringgit ini bukan sahaja melahirkan model bahasa besar LLM berdaulat Malaysia sendiri, tetapi juga merangsang pembangunan bakat dan kepakaran tempatan. Ia sekaligus menjana lebih banyak peluang pekerjaan berteknologi tinggi seperti saintis data dan jurutera AI. Beliau berkata demikian dalam perkongsian di media sosial selepas melawat pusat data itu. Menurut Tengku Zafrul, YTL merupakan salah satu daripada 5 rakan NVIDIA Cloud Partner bersama-sama dengan gergasi teknologi global lain seperti Amazon Web Services, AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, Oracle Cloud. Jelas Tengku Zafrul, perjumpaan Perdana Menteri Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim dengan Ketua Pegawai Eksekutif NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, bukan sekadar seman kosong. Sebaliknya, daripada potensi, ia diterjemahkan menjadi realiti. Kesan langsung daripada sekatan atau cabaran pasaran Amerika Syarikat terhadap industri minyak sawit Malaysia dijangka pada tahap minimum, kata Kementerian Perdagangan dan Komoditi KPK. Menurutnya, minyak sawit dari Malaysia dipersijilkan mampan oleh Minyak Sawit Mampan Malaysia MSPO dan mempunyai ciri dan fungsi khusus yang sukar diganti dengan minyak lain. Dalam jawapan bertulis kepada Parlimen, kementerian itu berkata tahap kebergantungan industri di Amerika terhadap bahan berasaskan sawit yang mampan adalah tinggi. KPK menjawab soalan Kamal Ashari PN Kuala Kerau mengenai pelan jangka pendek dan sederhana yang dirangka kerajaan untuk industri sawit menyesuaikan diri dengan pasaran Amerika. Menurut KPK, pada 2024, Malaysia telah mengeksport sebanyak 191,231 tan metrik minyak sawit ke Amerika dengan nilai ini hanya 1.1% daripada jumlah keseluruhan ekspor minyak sawit negara bagi tahun berkenaan. Katanya pada masa sama, kerajaan tetap komited menyediakan pelbagai bentuk sokongan khususnya kepada pekebun kecil. Sebagai contoh, skim pembiayaan mudah tanam semula pekebun kecil sawit serta geran khas seperti pembekalan produk untuk kawalan penyakit reput pangkal batang ganoderma bagi membantu pekebun kecil. Bantuan sebegini katanya boleh membantu untuk mengurangkan kesan atau impak kepada pekebun kecil Malaysia daripada perubahan dasar perdagangan di peringkat antarabangsa.
From Malaysia's paddy fields to the global stage in Silicon Valley, this is not just a startup story. It's a story about reimagining the future of food and farming. With breakthrough that can boost plant growth by up to 60%, Agri-Tech is proving that homegrown innovation can solve global challenges like food security and sustainability. Today, we are joined by the man behind this vision, is Chow Chi-ho, co-founder and CEO of Agri-Tech, whose journey embodies the very spirit of Malaysia's rising startup ecosystem. Chow, welcome and congratulations on making up to the Startup World Cup 2025 grand finale. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
All right, to start our conversation, maybe we're going to touch on innovation and take a closer look on the global competitiveness. How significant, Cho, is Agri-Tech patented biocompatible quantum dots in positioning Malaysia as a global leader in agri-tech innovation, and what are the challenges in scaling such technology for the international markets?
So our nanotechnology is invented in University Putra, Malaysia. So it's a homegrown technology. So our chief scientist, Professor Dr. Shraya, is the one who developed this biocompatible quantum dots from agricultural waste like empty fruit bunch from the palm oil industry. So this material has a very unique property. It has this photoluminescent property under our UV light, converting spectrum or light spectrum that by nature plant cannot absorb into visible light spectrum that the plant can absorb. So this unique property actually serves as a very effective photosynthesis enhancer for plants. So by spraying our material or our photosynthesis enhancer onto plant leaves, it helps plants to capture more light energy, and therefore the plants can photosynthesize more efficiently. And how is this technology or this solution being relevant to the global food security agenda? Because a lot of times in places where sunlight is limited, our solution can help farmers to maintain the same level of crop output. And in the sunny days or in the areas that with sufficient sunlight, we can boost their productivity or improve their crop yield. So it's relevant globally in any kind of climates or zones. As long as the plants are being cultivated or being grown, our technology will be relevant to them.
All right, we can see this is the solution that is very relevant to the global sustainability agenda, and the farmer can maintain the same level of output, especially from the area that have less coverage for the source needed. And for the farmer adoptions and impact, with 2,500 farmers in Malaysia already supporting Agri-Tech's product, what strategies can be implemented to ensure wider adoptions among smallholder farmers while maintaining affordability and accessibility?
So in Malaysia, we work very closely with government agencies and also our cooperative like Koperasi. So we work with them in order for us to share the benefits or build the awareness among smallholder farmers, because our technology is something novel. And we are seen as an agri-input, but it's not fertilizer nor pesticide. So it requires a lot of effort from our team to create that awareness or build the education about the limitation of photosynthesis. So we are very fortunate that government agencies or even Jabatan Pertanian is supporting us. So therefore, we are able to roll out our solution or our technology in commercial field, especially in the Penang state. So now, as I'm speaking, our team is in Penang, working with 2,000 smallholder farmers to benefit their rice field with our technology. And some of the fields are already harvesting, so we are able to share with the public more data and more proof about our technology in the commercial scale.
All right, we know that with the supports of Jabatan Pertanian and also from the government agencies, your team has been collecting with collective efforts, scaling up awareness between the farmers. And talking about this agency, is also involved within the policy spots. To what extent your output or your input are ecosystem players like Cradle Fund, MDAC, and MOSI equipped to provide the long-term financial, regulatory, and global market access support that startups like Carbotech need to thrive beyond competitions and global challenges?
During our early days, we are supported by grant from our NTIS, which is a special grant facilitated by Meranti and also MTDC. With their support, we were able to validate our technology at a small pilot. And with the validation data at the small scale, we were able to scale up our production or even manufacturing using external investor fund. So the early support from the agencies in the MOSTI ecosystem, it's really supportive and it's really beneficial for us. And I hope that more and more startups could be benefited from these initiatives by the government.
And for Carbotech, from the beginning until your journey, current journey right now, what some of the challenges that you have found that can be a surprising gap that need to be addressed fast?
So as we are scaling our technology globally, one limitation is actually the different regulatory framework in different countries. So in Malaysia, we are supported by good government agencies, very supportive MOSTI agencies as well, in order to help us maneuver the regulatory, and very different scenario in other countries. So we need to hire regulatory consultants to help us maneuver. And even in some countries, our product is not categorized in their current standard categories. For example, they only recognize fertilizer and pesticide. So the challenge is the time to market, because we need to get our product approved, or at least get a permit to commercialize our product in these different countries. So our immediate strategy is to penetrate into countries that do not require this kind of separate registration. One example is Australia. So it's a country that we are already expanding into, because Australia regulatory framework actually recognizes our material as a biostimulant and do not require a specific registration or specific permit. Yeah, so we are going for the low-hanging fruits that are the countries that do not require us to have a very difficult registration process.
All right, this is some of the updates that we can understand, and definitely this is within the domestic ecosystem, and then how can we reach higher with penetrating in other countries. We know that Malaysian startup ecosystem ambition with Norman Matthew Van Hey highlighted Malaysia's aspiration to be among the world's top 20 startup ecosystem by 2030. What are some of the concrete steps and policy reforms are necessary to turn this aspiration into a reality, and how do global competitions like the Startup World Cup accelerate or expose gaps in this region?
So I think one very obvious initiatives that the government has taken is to invite more external funders, international VCs, investors, to look at Malaysian startups or Malaysian technologies. So in the past 2 years, we have seen a lot of global VCs setting up their offices in Malaysia. So I think it's a very bold initiative taken by our government. And talking about in terms of the international scenes of startups, I think Malaysian talents have a lot to offer, because an average Malaysian can speak good English. We are able to communicate well, and that's actually our very a good competitive advantage comparing with maybe other nations in ASEAN. So that's our competitive edge, and our talents are able to really bring our local technologies and also local startup ideas in a global stage. So hopefully Carbotech will be an example to inspire more innovators out there to level up their game, to think globally with their solutions or technologies.
And we want to make sure that everybody receives the same opportunities, especially from small, medium players, stakeholders. And with the East Malaysia final, maybe this is my last question, still to come in Kuching, how can Malaysia ensure the startup opportunities and ecosystem support are evenly distributed across both West and East Malaysia, preventing innovation hubs from being too concentrated in Kuala Lumpur? So how can we scale up the unique selling positions in this situation?
So I think this year is the very first year that Startup World Cup, the Malaysia edition, actually has the KL final and the Kuching final. So it's an initiative specially curated by the organizer to encourage more startup ideas and more technologies coming from Sabah and Sarawak. So I think this is a very good kickstart or very good start for the relevant agencies in the federal government and also the state government level to work together, to synergize, to create more opportunities for the innovators or even startup founders to thrive in both Peninsula and also Sabah Sarawak.
All right, this is a story aspiring a journey from Carbotech. We can see the Agri-Tech breakthrough ahead of $1 million Silicon Valley finale. And I would say thank you very much for sharing your experience towards all of this. And wishing you all the best, and hopefully with the best preparation, we can take it home. Thank you again, I would say, to our guest, Cho Chi Ho, the co-founder and CEO of Carbotech. And definitely all of our discussion here will be featured in AstroAwani.com across all social media platforms. United Nations Global Compact Network Malaysia and Brunei UNGCMYB melancarkan satu inisiatif baharu pada Rabu dengan Astro Malaysia Holdings Berhad sebagai rakan media bagi memperkukuh penceritaan kelestarian dalam kalangan perniagaan di Malaysia. Majlis Pelancaran Kajian Kes Impak UNGCMYB menekankan bahawa kelestarian kini menjadi pemacu utama kepada ekuiti jenama dan pertumbuhan perniagaan jangka panjang.
Inisiatif ini meletakkan Astro AWANI sebagai platform utama untuk naratif yang berteraskan alam sekitar, sosial dan tadbir urus ESG, sekaligus menonjolkan peranan media dalam memajukan agenda kelestarian negara menerusi sub-jenama editorial iaitu AWANI Green Action. Inisiatif ini dibina atas kesinambungan kerjasama menerusi program Forward Faster Louder antara UNGCMYB dan Astro yang diperkenalkan bagi memperkasakan penceritaan ESG yang berwibawa daripada syarikat korporat, perusahaan mikro, kecil dan sederhana PMKS serta individu. Majlis tersebut turut menekankan kepentingan kelestarian yang semakin meningkat dalam membentuk ekuiti jenama dalam kejayaan perniagaan jangka panjang dengan para pemimpin industri bersetuju bahawa naratif ESG perlu melangkaui bilik mesyuarat dan laporan tahunan untuk mencapai khalayak yang lebih meluas. Kerjasama ini turut mengukuhkan pengiktirafan terhadap Astro AWANI, cabang berita dan hal ehwal semasa Astro sebagai platform yang dipercayai untuk penceritaan kelestarian. Astro juga mengalu-alukan syarikat ahli UNGCMYB untuk bekerjasama dalam membangunkan kerangka komunikasi yang berkesan. Inisiatif ini mencerminkan jangkaan global yang semakin meningkat terhadap tanggungjawab dan ketulusan korporat sambil menyasarkan untuk memberi inspirasi kepada lebih banyak perniagaan di Malaysia agar mengintegrasikan kelestarian dalam strategi penjenamaan dan komunikasi mereka.
All right, before we bring you the updates of Stories of the Weeks by World Economic Forum, and this is the update on US market with the Nasdaq and S&P 500 fell on Wednesday, August 20th, as investors sold tech stocks and moved into less highly valued sectors as they also awaited remarks from Federal Reserve officials at their Jackson Hole symposium this week. Tech stocks, which drove much of the recovery from Wall Street's April sell-off, have been pulling back The S&P 500 Technology Index was down on the day, while sectors such as energy, healthcare and consumer staples rose. The S&P 500 lost 15.59 points or 0.24% to end at 6,395.78 points, while the Nasdaq Composite lost 142.09 points or 0.67% to 21,172.86, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 16.04 points or 0.03% to 44,938.31.
I think things may be heading south today because possibly the prospect of the Fed cutting rates or discussing cutting rates at the meeting on Friday, maybe there's a little less chance of that. I've seen a lot of commentary recently about that there's really not a huge need to cut rates, that the economy is reasonably strong. And what many economists are more worried about is inflation. So I think the market has been up over, for the past several weeks on the prospect of rate cuts, and perhaps that prospect is fading. When Powell speaks, he is very, very measured. So it's really hard to imagine that he would say something that would be like, oh, yes, we're definitely going to cut rates, or we're definitely not going to cut rates. But sometimes if you can parse his words, you may get a little bit of a hint of one direction or the other. So, that is one thing that we would definitely look for. I don't think we would actually get that. I think we're just more likely to want to see what his comments are on the economy.
So imagine you're in a field and you see one robot going out, surveying the area, mapping it out. It then communicates to another robot that then comes in and might do per plant farming. So it has that precision. You can reduce your pesticides. You're supporting the farmer, saving money, and also helping the environment by using less pesticides.
What technology does is that it replaces tasks, not occupations. Any job is a bundle of tasks, and it's actually quite hard to go out and automate them all. Think of a groundskeeper. You need to operate powered equipment, recognize trees, prune, apply the right fertilizer, all of those things, rake. You could automate in principle all of those things, but it's actually uneconomical to do so. So we're more in a task-based, game here. It does remind me, Jim Besson, an economist, I think it was 2016, he looked at occupations in the 1950 US census and found that only one of them had disappeared, which was elevator operator, by the way, if you're doing trivia. Having said all of this, so yes, while replacing an occupation is fairly dramatic, of course, occupations can, suffer like with technological deployments.
For many people that see the climatic changes as something that's going to happen in the future, we don't need to worry about it. It's actually happening right now, right here.
sejahtera Menteri Azalina, rakan-rakan menteri dan peguam negara, Timbalan Menteri, tetamu yang saya muliakan. Alhamdulillah kita dapat menganjurkan satu persidangan perundangan ASEAN dan seperti mana disinggung oleh Menteri Azalina, sistem perundangan Badan Kehakiman merupakan tonggak utama dalam negara bebas, merdeka dan demokratik. Oleh itu, ia menuntut perubahan, reform yang berterusan. Prinsip pengasingan kuasa menuntut kita memahami bahawa era keangkuhan kuasa sama ada badan eksekutif, badan kehakiman atau legislatif harus berakhir. Pengalaman di negara-negara ASEAN, termasuk di Malaysia, membuktikan bahawa ada era di mana keangkuhan kuasa politik menyebabkan lemahnya sistem perundangan, seperti juga kerusakan dan kecemaran yang berlaku dalam badan kehakiman dengan tudingan rasuah dan keangkuhan serta penyelewengan. Sebab itu bila Menteri Azalina menekankan keperluan perubahan dan beliau melakukan itu dengan semangat dan yang kental dan kesungguhan dalam sidang-sidang jemaah menteri, perubahan-perubahan yang paling mantap dalam sejarah kita lihat dan rangka-rangka yang dilakukan bersama Jabatan Peguam Negara itu akan memberi keyakinan baru supaya meleburkan sanggahan terhadap salah guna kuasa baik dari segi pimpinan eksekutif ataupun kecenderungan badan kehakiman untuk mempamerkan kecelaruan dalam pemahaman perundangan dan aspek keangkuhan yang mungkin berlaku. Sebab itu kita sebagai kerajaan madani mendukung sepenuhnya ikhtiar yang dikemukakan oleh beliau dan rakan-rakan khususnya di Jabatan Peguam Negara. Thank you again, Dr. Kao Kim Hon, for the support. And I believe the presence of ministers and Attorney Generals and representatives of ASEAN signifies our total commitment to undertake and effect reform, law, justice, accessibility in ASEAN. So we are, of course, honored to host this forum, and may I again reiterate my expression of gratitude to all those who have contributed to this success, and most significantly the ASEAN commitment seen from the senior representation during this conference. Your presence, of course, reaffirms our collective resolve to strengthen justice and fairness as a cornerstone in regional integration. Malaysia has chosen the theme inclusivity and sustainability. And again, as alluded to by Minister Azalina, these words are not just mere platitudes. They represent a profound commitment to build an ASEAN that leaves no one behind and ensures our institutions endure beyond the demands of the present moment. Coming from my personal experience, I can certainly differentiate the meaning of accessibility to the elites and the rich and the masses. Therefore, the issue of access is, to me, very critical to ensure there is justice for every single citizen in our countries. I've seen where the poor, the marginalized have been largely ignored because there's no access to the legal process. Therefore, the discussion must focus also to issues of inclusivity because both in terms of development and progress education and health, accessibility to legal process is, to my mind, critical, particularly, again, I repeat, the poor, the marginalized. Because I've seen in Sungai Buloh, where I had the rare privilege of staying for many, many years, I can see that gross disparity, and therefore justice cannot be expected to be impacted on these poorer segments of our community. That's why I take a real pleasure in the passion and commitment of Minister Zalina, although she didn't have the experience, personal, practical experience, but I've shared with her quite a number of times what it means to have access to justice. Sustainability, in turn, is about building legal systems and institutions that stand the test of time. A government's true strength does not rest in the reach of its authority, but in the integrity of its institutions, its fairness in governance, and the trust it earns from its citizens. So we stand today at a defining moment. ASEAN is moving towards its vision 2045, and the rule of law will be the foundation of that journey. A rules-based ASEAN is not a technical aspiration. It is a bedrock of trust, stability, and shared prosperity. Similarly, unity in ASEAN does not demand uniformity. Our diversity is our strength. Each of our nations carries its own traditions, cultural values, and historical experiences. Yet these differences enrich rather than divide us. We are familiar with bersekutu bertambah mutu in Malaysia, bineka tunggal eka in Indonesia, which actually summarizes this spirit of multiculturalism and yet having the same aspiration for a united country and now ASEAN. So what binds us together is not sameness, but the collective will to ensure that our systems work in harmony for the greater good of our peoples. And if we are to uphold the shared framework, then each nation must also summon the resolve to strengthen its own legal foundations. For only strong pillars at home can sustain a resilient edifice abroad. In this spirit, Malaysia is reflecting on how best to strengthen its own legal architecture. Fortunately and unfortunately, I have a Minister of Law who is totally passionate and harassing us all the time to effect change as fast as possible. So therefore, I have to seriously consider the establishment of a dedicated Ministry of Law. A step that would not only ensure greater coherence in our national legal ecosystem, but also enable Malaysia to engage more meaningfully with our regional partners in advancing the rule of law. This statement is not smuggled by Azarina. It's after my strong reflection what I need to do towards the end of this year. By aligning ourselves with the best practices of our neighbors, Malaysia will be better placed to shape a more just and responsive regional order. With this spirit of renewal, ASEAN too must continue to invest in mutual legal assistance, strengthen mechanisms for dispute resolution, and confront the new challenges of digital governance and the regulation of artificial intelligence. These are not abstract reforms, they are acts of trust binding, of ensuring that ASEAN remains relevant and resilient in a rapidly changing world. Our region has proven time and time again that disputes can be resolved through dialogue and principled diplomacy. I salute both the leaders of Laos and Cambodia for this commitment to secure lasting, amicable resolution to the conflict and lasting peace. ASEAN's approach to peace has always been one of quiet strength, consensus, and respect. The same spirit must guide our legal cooperation. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, history shows us that confrontation breeds only uncertainty, while dialogue builds the trust needed for lasting stability. We saw this recently when tensions flared, as I've mentioned, between Thailand and Cambodia. Now, through the ASEAN spirit, the leaders of ASEAN and many other world leaders, we were able to support this effort to mediate, but only through the collective will of ASEAN. And I commend both leaders because both parties agreed swiftly to a ceasefire. Now, this was not just a triumph of diplomacy, but a reminder that even in moments of deep strain, Dr. Kao, ASEAN can rise above division and reaffirm its role as custodian of peace. As Nelson Mandela once reminded us, courageous people do not fear forgiving for the sake of peace. So when we strengthen mediation, arbitration, and conciliation, we do more than refine legal processes. We demonstrate our shared commitment to peace, stability, and the rule of law. Now, I understand that the forum will adopt a joint statement on legal cooperation, human rights, and sustainable development. And we look forward to effecting this resolution into practice. And Malaysia, of course, remain committed in its resolve to translate it into practical action through legal processes and series of reforms. Too fast that the Attorney General start complaining to me that the ministers wants the legal drafts to be cleared far too quickly, and that would take a lot of strain on the legal team. But again, as I said, this is effective, but what matters more is the resolve to translate aspiration into action, vision into tangible progress for our peoples. Sekali lagi saya ucap terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for that inspiring speech. Can I please invite you to remain on stage? We would now like to invite all ASEAN law ministers to join the Prime Minister on stage as well. And now for the adoption and affirmation of ASEAN Law Ministers' joint statement on the international commercial arbitration and mediation development. We would like to invite Yang Berhormat Datuk Sri Azalina Othman Said to step forward and present the mock joint statement to the Secretary General of ASEAN, His Excellency Dr. Kao Kim Horn. This gesture represents the spirit of unity, collaboration, and the formal adoption of our joint statement. Now, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to catch
Dingin bayu di puncak Kinabalu, ribuan hutan beserta khazanah flora dan fauna, serta keajaiban alam maritim yang tiada taranya. Sabah bukan sekadar destinasi pelancongan. Ia merakam memori dan nostalgia yang kekal di hati. Seiring hala tuju Sabah maju jaya, industri pelancongan Sabah terus dipacu dengan perancangan dan promosi berterusan. Ikuti temu buala eksklusif bersama Menteri Pelancongan, Kebudayaan dan Alam Sekitar, Datuk Seri Christina Liu, Isnin 25 Ogos 2025, 8.30 malam di saluran 501 AWANI dan semua platform media sosial Astro AWANI.
Apakah maksud sebenar perpaduan? Jom kita tengok sendiri.
I inspired lah dengan apa yang jadi hari ni. Aku rasa kan, saya buat lagu lah.
Inilah kita, sehati bersama.
Thanks for joining us. I have with me Daniel Kitu of SERI. They are a think tank when it comes to health and health policies. Daniel Kitu is pushing forward a particular agenda that supports the RMK13 plan that was presented in the Parliament roughly about 2 weeks ago, where there would be a widening of the pro-health tax policies, including increasing tax on sin industries such as tobacco, alcohol, and vaping. So let's talk about the latest proposal that was done by SERI. Daniel, maybe you can tell us a little bit more in terms of the agenda that is set forward by SERI and how you believe, or at least SERI believes, that increasing the tobacco tax does not push forward the trade in illicit cigarettes. Because that's what we hear often. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you, Ibrahim, for having me. I'll just start off. So the aim of our agenda is essentially to increase tobacco taxation because we haven't had an increase in tobacco taxes for almost 10 years. Part of the reason
more,
is...
right? 2014, that was the last one.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So, and one of the issues with that is because the prices of cigarettes have generally remained the same, that essentially makes them more affordable for people to purchase them. So that undermines trying to reduce smoking prevalence. So one of the reasons that we don't have an increase regularly is because there's a lot of these misconceptions on illicit trade, that supposedly higher taxes that lead to higher prices supposedly lead to higher illicit trade. But that's actually a lot more complicated and nuanced in that. So there's been a lot of research like globally and in Malaysia that that prices are not the main driver of illicit trade, but it's actually weak enforcement and corruption. So as long as you actually have improvements in enforcement and corruption, you shouldn't be worried about illicit trade. So that's why it's important for the government to continue with their efforts in improving enforcement. So for example, there's this new border force agency called AKPS. Essentially, that basically streamlines 20 different agencies in terms of enforcing against illicit trade of goods in general. So that also includes illicit cigarettes. So as long as the government puts in this kind of effort, they shouldn't be worried about increasing tobacco taxes. So I'll give you an example. Back in between 2012 and 2014, there were some tobacco tax increases, but at the same time, based on the data from the tobacco industry, illicit trade was fairly stable during that period. But at the same time, if you look at the corruption perception index during that period, it was actually going down, meaning we were improving in terms of anti-corruption efforts. But then in 2015, when we had the last increase, illicit trade did go up according to their data. But at the same time, that was also a period when corruption was on the rise. The corruption perception index was getting worse. So it's a clear indication that corruption is what's mainly driving illicit trade, not the prices of legal cigarettes.
And then, of course, when we talk about the price inelastic of cigarettes, it would also increase the revenue of the country. Have you done projections in terms of how much, I don't know, 10% increase of excise tobacco tax would mean in terms of dollar revenue?
Yeah. So just for our latest projections that we've been able to compute, about like a 50% increase should lead to about 1.2 billion increase in tobacco tax revenue. And I think another point to also clarify is about the price inelasticity of cigarettes. So when we say they're inelastic, it doesn't mean that demand doesn't decrease. It just means that the reduction in demand is relatively smaller compared to the increase in revenue. So that's what it actually means. So it's actually, that's why it's referred to as a win-win situation, whereby you can reduce smoking and also increase government revenue.
And then let's talk about the revenue that the government needs, right? It's also important to look at how much the government spends in terms of public health, not just for non-communicable diseases, but treating lung CA in particular, lung cancer in particular. How much is that costing the government? Do you have those numbers?
So in terms of how much smoking and tobacco use costs Malaysia, so you have to take into consideration direct healthcare costs and also labor productivity loss, because you can't avoid the fact that smoking does lead to a lot of NCDs. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 18.3 or 4 billion per year. That's what it costs Malaysia. So in a way, there's two benefits.
So 18 billion ringgit
exactly
that costs Malaysia to treat lung cancer.
Yeah. That's not just lung cancer, so that's all the complications that come with smoking.
Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
And it's important to consider, the whole picture,
yeah.
And then they're just focusing on one particular disease or illness. So there's this two-pronged approach whereby increasing tobacco taxes helps increase revenue or improves the fiscal health of our country. So one is to obviously raise tax revenue, but it's also reducing the burden on our healthcare system, which is already overstretched. So by increasing tobacco taxes, not only can we increase revenues, which can be used to allocate to public health programs, for example, to help people quit smoking, so you increase the chances for people to quit smoking, but it also helps change people's behavior and try to reduce their tobacco consumption. That will eventually lead to a lower risk in other non-communicable diseases like lung cancer, asthma, and so on. Yeah.
Many cigarette companies are also trying out to push out I don't know what they call it, non-cigarette products.
I think you're talking about non-combustible
products. Yeah.
So it's like heated tobacco products.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the moment, their prevalence here isn't particularly high compared to like conventional cigarettes, but in the long run, it is something that Malaysia does have to address. For example, with the current Smoking Control Act, which is going through a phased implementation, which should be fully implemented by this October. So that essentially closes any loopholes with other more newer products like heated tobacco products, vapes, e-cigarettes, so that essentially they're treated the same way as conventional cigarettes when it comes to...
So currently it's not treated the same way?
No. So when it comes to like
how is it not treated the same way?
Example, advertising these products. So I'll give you a personal example.
Okay.
A personal example. I was once out with my parents at a shopping mall, and I saw this car. I won't name the company, but I saw them basically promoting their product, their heated tobacco product on the car. You can't do that with conventional cigarettes, but you can do that for now with heated tobacco products.
So there's no curtailing of that effort?
Exactly. So until this October, where that legislation comes into full force.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. So actually, when it comes to those...
So say again, which exact
the
legislation?
The Smoking Control Act.
So the Smoking Control Act is now widened to also include heated tobacco products?
Exactly.
So no, what does it say? No above the line marketing?
There's basically same restrictions on conventional cigarettes, the prohibition of advertisements, sales to age under 18 and so on. But that also applies to vapes as well. So when it comes to those aspects of tobacco control, Malaysia actually does pretty well. But the one aspect that we've been underutilizing was really tobacco taxation. And it's quite unfortunate because it is one of the most cost-effective ways to address tobacco consumption.
And then, there's many of the things that needs to be sliced and diced here, including point of sale, where the blinding of the brands behind closed counters. Many countries in ASEAN has done it, Thailand specifically, but there's a few others as well. Is this also covered in the widening of that?
So, yes, it will be fully implemented by October.
Yeah. So including the blind
that's right.
behind convenience stores.
That's right.
Oh, that's awesome. Are there any studies that shows reduction in terms of the purchasing or the utilizing of these tobacco products once these things are in place? Markets like Thailand, do we know how much before, after kind of thing?
So I'll give you a very good example in ASEAN, the Philippines. So what the Philippines has done in terms of tobacco taxation as part of their sin tax reform law, back in, I think, around 2016, they essentially implemented I think about a 300% increase in tobacco taxes, and also make
300?
sure, yes.
Oh wow.
Yes, and they basically allocated those revenue that was raised to health programs. At the same time, they also subsequently amended the act so that there will be regular increases in tobacco taxes. So that's why actually since then, since 2016 onwards, they've actually surpassed Malaysia in terms of reducing tobacco use and smoking prevalence.
And that took how long?
I think within a few years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to recap, so currently the tobacco tax in Malaysia is roughly 45% to 55%, am I right?
Yeah, just over 50%.
Slightly, okay, over 50%, but sorry, it comes under two types of taxes. One is excise duty tax, another one is sales tax. Therefore, it comes over 50%. Yeah. So what are you pushing forward now? What number is the right number?
So we've proposed 5 ringgit per pack increase as a minimum. So that's on the excise duties. So the reason why we're focusing on excise taxes is because excise taxes are essentially a tax imposed on a particular and specific product. But as opposed to like sales tax, that applies to a number of different products.
Yeah, I mean, anything that needs to be sold is subject to sales tax.
Yeah. So the reason why it's important to increase excise taxes is because we need cigarettes, other tobacco products to be more expensive relative to other products, because that's the way for people to feel the pinch and essentially change their behavior.
Pedestrian speaking, there's a lot of males that would smoke as compared to females.
Yeah.
Many of them are household earners. How do you ensure that this does not harm the household income if the breadwinner then reallocates household income specifically to supplement his habit?
Yes.
Have you figured that one out?
So I think this is especially concerning for like low-income individuals.
Yes.
So there's
Not
always
individuals, low-income households.
Yes, low-income households. Yeah. So there's always this argument, increasing tobacco taxes actually is going to burden them. But that's not actually true. We know from studies worldwide that low-income households tend to be more price-sensitive, and that's because they have less disposable income. So they're more likely to actually change their behavior and reduce smoking. And that actually allows people to not only reduce smoking, but allocate whatever income they have to more important aspects of life, like whether it's healthcare, education, and so on.
Okay. What kind of pushbacks have you been receiving with this push by SERI to support the government in increasing the tobacco tax?
It's mainly two things. It's on illicit trade of cigarettes and the impact that it could have on low-income households. But as I've already said, that increasing tobacco taxes is not the main driver of illicit trade. What you have to focus on is corruption and enforcement to address the illicit trade of cigarettes. And when it comes to the impact on low-income households, it's actually beneficial for them. So most consumption taxes tend to be regressive, but like tobacco taxes are quite unique because of the behavioral change that comes with the tax increase.
So when it comes to ringgit purchasing power, because of inflation, it is now becoming more affordable. The number that you're looking for is 60 to 75%, and instead of the 55% that we have right now. And what is stopping the government from doing this, in your opinion?
I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of these misconceptions. Again, it's always these two things: illicit trade and the impact on low-income households. So it's very important for us to be more vocal about these misconceptions so that we can actually move forward and have an increase in tobacco taxes, and also make sure that we have regular increases in tobacco taxes so that cigarettes become less affordable over time.
The elephant in the room, of course, is also on vape. What's the take on vape now?
Yeah. So actually with vapes, they actually have much lower prevalence compared to conventional cigarettes. But at the same time, it's important to focus on vape.
But it's hitting the young generation,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. So it's important to also not forget about conventional cigarettes because, and again, they're not really mutually exclusive because it's not uncommon for people to start vaping and then go on to start smoking. So, and there are a lot of concurrent dual uses of vapes and smoking. So they're not mutually exclusive. And I think now with the government's, with the possibility that the government might ban vapes, actually it becomes more important to increase.
Do you know which governments have banned vapes?
So like Singapore, yeah, Singapore has done that. I think Australia has as well. So yeah, so if they do decide to ban vapes, I think what's important is enforcement. So that's why increasing tobacco taxes actually is very important, because that revenue from tobacco taxes can provide an additional source for the government to allocate towards enforcement efforts to make sure that vapes are not being sold.
What does the data show when it comes to vape and its effects on health? Because it's currently being peddled as the safer alternative, not even safer even from heated tobacco. Is that a real thing?
It's not that straightforward, especially in a country like Malaysia. So one of the reasons that the government wants to ban vapes is because we have a problem with illicit drugs being laced in these vaping products, and that's largely because there's a lot of it's very customizable, right? So
that's a way of putting it. I would say unregulated.
Yes, that's another way of putting
it. Highly customizable is a very polite way of saying things. But yeah, because of its unregulated nature, you can put anything. You can put biryani inside it if you want. I mean, it's unregulated.
Yeah.
So yeah, is the government doing anything looking into these particular efforts from what Seri is looking at right now?
So,
have you heard of anything?
So currently, the latest proposal is from MOH is to possibly ban vapes. But if that doesn't happen, it's very likely there will be an increase in taxes on vapes. So, but I think again, right, it's important to recognize that vapes, they don't exist like in a vacuum per se, right? They exist with a lot of these other products. People might use multiple products. So there's vapes, there's conventional cigarettes. So it's important to look at this from a multi-pronged approach. So okay, good. If the government decides to ban vape, that's great. But at the same time, don't forget about conventional cigarettes. Make sure you raise taxes on them so that it acts as a deterrent for people to turn to cigarettes, for example, and increases the chances for people to quit smoking.
What about some other elements of sin tax, including alcohol? The government does plan to increase the excise duty on alcohol products as well. One would argue that the effects either on NCD or behavioral changes on alcohol might not necessarily be as negative as, say, for instance, tobacco products or vaping. Do you see this in the right step, or do you feel that the government can hold off on the increase on the alcohol tax?
So when it comes to taxes on, whether it's tobacco products, alcohol, or even sugar sweetened beverages.
So that's something that we need to attack, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. So the same principle applies. These are harmful products, and there needs to be efforts to reduce consumption of these products. So again, the same principle. So like the government's thinking on addressing all of these is actually quite good, and it's consistent with the evidence worldwide that excise taxes do reduce consumption of these harmful products.
Okay. And then, of course, if people want to learn more about these particular products or learn more about your work, how do they go about supporting it, and what kind of literature or understanding that they need to get when it comes to supporting the government's efforts in increasing sin tax to inculcate behavioral changes to reduce the impact on the healthcare cost and healthcare stress and strain on the country? Where do you think they can get, I guess, advice and better knowledge in this? And then at the end of it, how do they seek support to quit smoking? Because at the end of the day, this is what we want. I'm a quitter as well, so. And I've been smoking since I was 15 before, and if not for Seri co-founder Dr. Hilmi, I don't think I could have quit, So yeah, how do they go about it?
So I guess first good resource is Suri's website and the research you put out.
Of course, you sell yourself. Yes. Go ahead. It's okay. Do our website. Go ahead.
That's one area to look at. There's also a lot of useful online resources because the tobacco epidemic is worldwide. So there's the Tobacco Atlas, which is essentially like a collaboration.
Whoa, you call it epidemic, huh?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Oh, it is an epidemic. The WHO report calls it the tobacco report epidemic or something along those lines.
Right.
That's what it is. It is.
So which one is more addictive, sugar or tobacco?
I'd say tobacco is probably more addictive because of nicotine.
So nicotine. All right. Okay.
Yeah. There's the Tobacco Atlas, which is essentially a collaboration of public health organizations. There's the University of Bath Tobacco Tactics. So it's a good resource for on trying to address all the misconceptions about tobacco products. In terms of trying to affect change, I think especially now that Parliament is in session, if this is an issue that's important to you, especially if you know someone who is smoking, who has faced the harms.
Are you kidding me?
Smoking.
Everybody knows someone who's smoking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even I myself have known someone who smoked and died from lung cancer.
Yeah.
So
same here.
Yeah. So especially with Parliament in session, this is your time to talk to your MPs, pester them if you have to. I mean, at the end of the day, they work for you. So it's time for us to increase tobacco taxes and make sure that this...
It's hard because some of the MPs are smokers themselves.
Exactly.
So there's that.
Yeah, there is that. But ultimately, their duty is to us, the public, the rakyat.
Yeah.
And so we have to push for this increase in tobacco taxes. So there seems to be some political will based on what the Prime Minister has said. But I think we need to push a bit further as well to make sure that this doesn't happen again where we've waited more than 10 years for another tax increase.
Yeah, because there is no mechanism to assist the government in tapering upwards of the excise duty. It's an as and when kind of thing.
Yes, and we need to be more proactive in the policy making world. So it needs to be regular tax increases that addresses the affordability of cigarettes. We have to make them less affordable over time and not just wait until it becomes a problem again in 10 years.
Let's talk a little bit about your background, because prior to starting the show, you were telling me that you did health economics. So this is something that is quite interesting for me, because I do look into health and economics quite often, but of course I'm not formally trained. What are the things that you are looking at when it comes to, say, for instance, health economics, other than tobacco? Do you feel that NCD is one of the biggest, worries that a country like Malaysia needs to deal with? Especially, for instance, I just came back from Sweden. Beautiful country, fantastic. My sister lives there. Norway as well, and then Denmark. And you know what, the Scandinavian countries, their greatest fear is NCDs. And even with the increase of sugar tax there, per capita NCD is actually one of the highest in the world relative to, say, for instance, countries like in India and Malaysia. So that took me by surprise. So it really is an issue that countries, rich or poor, advanced or developing, still needs to grapple with. So do you see this as one of the main drivers of why you wanted to partake this particular discipline for your tertiary education?
So yes, NCDs are a problem that's growing worldwide, especially as countries become more developed. And for me personally, the reason that I got very interested in this field is because I myself have type 1 diabetes.
Oh, okay.
So
you got a thing.
Exactly. I have to take insulin for myself. So I myself have faced the burden, the economic burden of with an NCD. And with type 1 diabetes, it's not preventable. So I have personally felt that struggle. So that's why I got...
It's congenital, so there's not much you can do.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I got interested in health economics. And I'm hoping to use it as a tool to help improve people's health outcomes.
Okay.
So especially with taxes, we know that they are very cost effective in addressing these problems. And that's especially true with tobacco taxes.
All right. Thanks, Daniel, for this chat. Very bright young man. And of course, if you want to learn more, just head on to Suri's website. It is seri.my. Is that it? Yeah, it is. All right. And of course, if you missed any part of this show, just head on to astroawani.com. Find out more information there. We're still talking about the RMK13. For this segment, we're looking at the health element, but there are many other segments within the AWANI if you can reach out and look for those kind of resources there as well. So catch you in the next one.
Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah jiwa SME, Unified Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.
Dingin bayu di puncak Kinabalu, rimbunan hutan beserta khazanah flora dan fauna, serta keajaiban alam maritim yang tiada taranya. Sabah bukan sekadar destinasi pelancongan. Ia merakam memori dan nostalgia yang kekal di hati. Seiring hala tuju Sabah maju jaya, industri pelancongan Sabah terus dipacu dengan perancangan dan promosi berterusan. Ikuti temu bual eksklusif bersama Menteri Pelancongan, Kebudayaan dan Alam Sekitar, Datuk Seri Christina Liu, Isnin 25 Ogos 2025, 8.30 malam di saluran 501 AWANI dan semua platform media sosial Astro AWANI.